This is Ben Allen, founder of BC Allen Publishing Group and Tonic Books, a partnership publishing house. We made this interview for you. Why? Because it is our mission to usher into existence the world's next great wave of life-changing, world-altering books. One of those books could be inside you right now, and no writer can go from idea to bestseller alone. No writer has to. Be sure to check out the other resources we've created for aspiring and established authors and the dozens of interviews we've done with some of the world's best, brightest, and most successful New York Times bestselling authors, world-impacting movement builders, and influencers that reach millions of lives. Do enjoy. Hello, everybody. I am here with Brandilyn Tebo, who I'm absolutely excited to be talking with. She has just developed, you are an incredible human being, and you've developed a really amazing sort of following around you and the work that you do, and you're helping a lot of people. And I've got to read your book or this upcoming book, and I've got familiar with your work, and I'm super excited to have you here to be talking about that book and everything that you've created.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, great. I'm going to start by reading your bio, and then we're going to just jump in. I'm going to ask you about 10,000 questions.
Can't wait.
Okay, Brandilyn Tebo is an acclaimed transformational coach, writer, and speaker. Once a type A perfectionist who struggled with anorexia, she knows firsthand how destructive attachment to external validation can be. Through years of inner work and deep meditation, coaching trainings, and the study of Eastern and Western transformational philosophies, she learned how amazing life can be once you let go of fear, limiting beliefs, and false identification with achievements. She has traveled the world to teach empowering workshops in high schools, prisons, Fortune 500 companies, and colleges. Today, she coaches clients on how to remove internal barriers to following their hearts and to be the fullest expression of themselves. Such an awesome background here, and such a great and exciting human being. So happy to have you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share, first of all, one of the things that comes up with the writers that I work with is that they think, well, I don't have enough content. I don't have enough to produce a book that's going to be good. I don't know exactly what I need to be saying. I don't know if people will take me as an authority, and you're somebody that's built that you've worked through those things, I think, rather quickly. Like, you're a lot younger than most of the authors I work with. And I don't know, are those things that have come up for you in the process, like a worry about creating content or being taken as an authority, or are those things just totally on the sidelines for you?
Absolutely, especially when I first started my business and I was intending to write an article a week and to film YouTube videos. And I was really confronted by this fear of not having enough to say. And then I realized that I only run out of things to say when I stop interacting with other people, and when I'm trying to pull it all out of my own head. I always wanted to write a book since I was little. I've been a writer. And I had this image in my head that writing a book had to be this enormous, arduous process where I would have to share everything that's ever happened to me in my life and get all of my wisdom out there. And it was such a big deal in my head that I never started. And then when I began coaching people, I would get off a coaching call and I would be like, wow, that was really powerful. I have to write that down. So I would write 2 paragraphs on what we covered in the call. And then I'd have another coaching call and it would be a different topic that we'd covered. And then over time, I had these dozens of pages of this writing that was really helping people. And it almost just kind of wrote itself and turned itself into this book. And I realized that when I'm trying to write it from just like me being an isolated person, then it's all coming from ego. But when I'm interacting with other people and then just documenting what took place, then it's like this really robust work that I know makes a difference for people because it's already been tested out.
Yeah, that is such good advice. That shift from, I think Gary Vaynerchuk says that as well. He's like, you don't need to create, like, just document the stuff that's already happening. And that takes away, I think, a lot of the pressure that people put on themselves. And that's a great system. So you were already coaching people, and then you would sit down and you would write what kind of occurred in that coaching session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And how is that the way that the book topic kind of formed, or did you have an idea of a rough topic that you wanted before you began doing those notes?
Yeah, so my book is called The Achievement Trap, and I had no idea that I would be writing a book on that. It started out as a coaching call where I wrote a paragraph afterwards because it was really powerful, where I was coaching somebody on how to get out of their own way and not need to achieve things in order to get validation from the outside, but instead to set goals that are really nourishing and are inherently fulfilling at every step along the way. And I found myself explaining this same concept on coaching call after coaching call, and I found how broadly applicable it was for so many people to really shift from setting goals from their head and to setting goals from their heart. So I just wrote an article and I published it on Elephant Journal, and it got thousands of shares, and I got a lot of great feedback on it. And then I did a video on it, and then I wrote more articles that expounded upon it. And again, it just really wrote itself. I think sometimes we don't choose the topics kind of choose us.
Yeah. So this one you kind of stumbled into, and then it got a lot of traction, and you just continued to explore that. Was it that conscious? Like, so you began to write articles after that article, and then were those purposely in relationship to this main article, the first that you had written?
Some of them were, and some of them I wrote just kind of tangentially and then realized how applicable it was to the book topic and then wove it in.
Yeah, that's great. Give us a sense of how some of the stuff from the book applied to your own writing process, setting reasonable goals.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of that.
Oh, well, it's so funny. I realized after being pretty far into writing the book that I was actually writing it for myself, and that I was my target audience, and that everything that I wrote was exactly what I needed to hear. And it's funny, sometimes I'll be on a phone call with my boyfriend, and I'll be talking to him about how I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm feeling stressed about all of the different projects that I have going and everything that I have to get done. And he'll say, I have a book that I think you really need to read. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, my girlfriend wrote it. It's called The Achievement Trap. And I'm like, darn it. Caught red-handed. So really writing the book was almost like my therapy. I am the overachiever, perfectionist, people pleaser that I wrote the book for. So sometimes I'd find myself getting caught up in that space of seeking validation and getting stressed out and worrying about what other people think of me. And then I'd sit down and kind of write an article to myself about it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it does. I mean, that I think is very true. 90% of the time I work with somebody, when they're writing a book, it's kind of exactly what they need to hear. I'd love to hear a little bit specifically, like how did you work with that perfectionist voice that came up, that overachieving voice that came up, and the kind of inner critic or looking for validation through others or through achievement? Like, how did you work with that? And maybe the ways that you worked with that also happens to be some of the advice in the book.
Yes. So there were many times that I would have scheduled in my phone time to write, time to expound upon my book, or scheduled in time to go back and do edits or any part of the writing process, when I would feel that internal resistance come up and be like, I don't want to do this, and feel the stress of, what if this isn't good enough? What if I don't have anything creative come out? And then I would have to go back to the material in the book and remind myself that I'm not doing this to prove anything to anybody. I'm not doing this to get a certain number of followers or a certain number of likes or make a certain amount of money. I'm doing it because this truly is what's in my heart. And I love this, and I chose this for myself. Nobody's making me do this. I'm not sentenced to having to write this book. I chose it because I get to use writing as an outlet for my self-expression and a way to connect with other people and to communicate my truth. And it really matters to me. And anytime that I get caught up in the stress of, I don't feel like it, I don't want to, I'm acting as if this was thrust upon me, and I'm forgetting that I'm the one that chose it. So I actively remind myself of my bigger reasons why. And a lot of the book, that's what it talks about. It talks about connecting yourself to a vision or a mission or a possibility that's so much bigger than yourself, that when you plug into it, it's like your life is given by the inspiration of that vision, rather than you coming from your little small ego self wanting to get validation, approval, affirmations from the outside.
That's wonderful. And how did you come to that bigger vision? Was that always just kind of within you, or was there a process that you used to get there?
My vision for the world, you mean?
Yeah, and for connecting and for serving people. Yeah. And for expressing yourself and being creative, and then helping other people be expressed as well, right? Like that's the sense I get of that's your vision. And if I'm off, I'd like to hear what it really is.
Yeah, no, that's very true. My vision is that people are free from the need to prove themselves, free from the shackles of the shoulds that the outside world thrusts upon us, and are free to follow their heart and be the fullest expression of themselves, which I think that when we remove the internal barriers, all everybody just wants to be is love for one another. I think that's who we really are.
Yeah. And so did that also just occur kind of by being in conversation with people, by practicing, or was there a kind of conscious process that you went through? I think some writers are still looking for that thing that will help carry them forward.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think there's about 10,000 different ways that I can answer that question, but my coming upon it definitely had to do with my own journey and my own internal struggles. Another thing I talk about a lot is what I call thank you darkness, where I think that the most trying experiences of our lives tend to be the ones that have us grow the most, and the ones that we end up being the most grateful for if we're willing to transform our perspective on it. And I went through a lot. I, as a kid, had separation anxiety and sleep disorders and OCD, and I had ulcers as a kid. I went through a lot of like traumatic stuff in my childhood. And then as a teenager, I had anorexia. I had to, heal from that, and was so caught up in needing everything to be perfect and needing to win at everything and succeed at everything. And I was totally checked out from life. I was like this zombie that walked through life and could do nothing but achieve, and was totally cut off from my heart and what I really wanted. And that reached a head such that if I didn't handle it and really like take my life back, then I wasn't going to be able to go on. Like literally I was so thin that I wasn't going to be able to go back to college if I didn't get control of it. So that forced me on this really intense spiritual, transformational, personal development path. And in a short period of time, I did a lot of inner work, 10-day silent meditation retreats, and did like intensive transformational programs and leadership programs. And I came out the other side a million times more free, more at peace, and more myself than when I went into it. So going through that stark of a contrast and feeling what it feels like to be free and at peace with yourself, I don't think that anybody on this planet could go through that and then not feel that they must give their life in service of giving that back to other people.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's really it, and I think that being of service is like the most selfish thing that I could possibly do. I get so much joy out of it. It's like, I feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. It's a beautiful story, and you tell that so well in the book, like those pieces of the story in the book, and also just live like this. It's really riveting. So I've got a couple of other, I feel like we could dig around in that stuff for a while more. Now, in terms of just like giving people advice from that, I'm not sure what the advice would be, but just hearing your story about how you came to these topics and how you really came to what this bigger vision is for yourself, I think that can allow people to open up to what it is that's inside them, right? What is their experience really dictating? What is their expertise really led them to? What is their practice and their life kind of building towards. And if they spend the time intimately related to whatever it was that led them to this current moment, they might find that same kind of resolve and that same kind of drive that you found to give things back. And I think a lot of people who write actually have that on some level. In order to write a book, you've got to have the desire to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Okay, so how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, probably about a year. But I churned out the majority of the book in like 2 months because I was, on fire producing content. And I was actually writing the book while I was working at a corporate job that I knew was very much not right for my soul. So the act of writing was an outlet for me that felt very cathartic and made me feel that I was fulfilling some of my mission, even though the rest of my life didn't seem like it was. So I turned out the majority of it in about 2 months, and then I continued adding on to it and refining it for 10 months after that.
So you were doing the book. You were running events at that point, or was this not yet?
Yeah, I was working a corporate job, and then I was running retreats on the weekends. I was taking coaching calls on my lunch breaks. I was rushing home. I had to commute like an hour and a half each way. I was rushing home to lead a workshop at night. I was, writing my book in any downtime that I had. So it was major side hustle going on for a while there.
Nice. And then you were also writing for Elephant Journal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you land that? I think there's a lot of authors that might want those kinds of regular publications.
Yeah. I just submitted for them a few years ago. They published my article, got a lot of views. People reached out to me. I loved the community that I got connected to because of it. So then I started writing for them regularly. Again, at this time, I was still at my corporate job, so writing was my outlet. So I was just like voraciously writing, and everything that I wrote, I just sent to them, because typically I just sent it out on my email and not too many people get to see it. So I loved that each article was getting seen by or read by thousands of people and shared all over the place. So I was writing like an article a week for them. And then after a period of time, they said that I had gotten enough views and shares that I could have my own columnist account.
Wow. And
then after that, I continued writing enough for them that they said that I could be a featured author.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And was there anything in particular that you were doing with those articles, you think, that kind of ushered them into a lot of people's lives? Like, was there something that you did that helped them spread?
As far as my sharing them, or
just, any of it, like how you wrote it, and also the kind of like, was there something about building the kind of platform around it, or the way that you shared them, or kind of both?
Well, I think it's the topics that I chose to write about. And again, my writing style is very much, I get inspiration from what people are requesting. So this serendipitous thing keeps happening where I will have themes on my coaching calls where like all of my clients from 1 week will be dealing with the same thing, whether it's like dealing with indecision and not knowing which option to choose, or whether it's dealing with procrastination, or dealing with feeling uninspired by their vision, or it's like these themes come through. It's like they're screaming to me to write about a certain topic. So then I take that inspiration and I write about it. And then that seems to be the thing that everyone needs. I don't know if we're all on like the same cycles and rhythms here, but it seems like there's these like topics that lots of people are dealing with. And I think I've been able to tap into that.
Yeah, that's and just by kind of sinking into what you're curious about, you've been able to access those.
Yeah.
And what comes up in your coaching calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's fascinating. I hear that from a lot of writers, and there's these ideas. I think Elizabeth Gilbert, this is the second time I've mentioned this in this interview series, but Elizabeth Gilbert, the author who wrote Big Magic and Eat, Pray, Love and all these other books, she has this thing about ideas that like an idea or this creative impulse, they kind of like move around almost like a phantom and they latch onto people. And if a person doesn't express that thing and bring it to fruition, it will kind of wander off until it finds somebody that will express it. And what I hear and what you're doing is you're sinking into what is interesting and compelling to you and what fits in your visions for the world, and what's present with your clients. And then you actually get to work and you get it done. Mm-hmm. And that I think is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm lucky in the sense that and I'm sure this is a good thing and a bad thing, but whenever I get an inspired idea, I'm so terrified that if I don't act on it, it's going to disappear. Like you said, the little inspiration fairy is going to fly away to somebody else. So I like make sure that I follow through, on all the ideas, because I really do believe that it's if you get an inspired idea, you are meant to execute on it, or else you would not have been inspired by the idea in the first place.
Yeah, that's great. And so, okay, so you work that into your articles. That's on one end of it. And then on the other end of it, in the sharing and the kind of, bringing it to the world part, is there anything that you do on that side? I know you've built a great engaged following on Instagram, right? And you're beginning a podcast. You're publishing these articles regularly. Mm-hmm. So what did you do to kind of build all that stuff up, beyond just the writing of the articles?
Sharing and sharing and sharing and sharing. I have an Excel spreadsheet of a couple hundred people and their email addresses that when I was first starting out, every time I do a YouTube video, I'd send out personalized emails to everybody.
Wow.
And ask them to check it out, ask them to share.
And that was just people in your world, or your friends, your family, or who were you
sending? When I first started out, I was doing a lot of work around eating disorders and body image. So back then it was me sharing with the people in that realm. Now I've shifted more broadly into general transformational work. And so now I'm sharing with people in that world. And then mostly it's being of service and sharing other people's work and being there for them so that they feel that they want to share your work. I think it's investing in those relationships and curating them.
How do you select those relationships? Is there any premeditation to that, or is it just the people that inspire you? Or
yeah, it's people that inspire me. Maybe I should be more strategic in terms of curating relationships with people who would help me to expand my reach more, but mostly it's just whenever I feel touched by someone or inspired by the work that they do, then I authentically actually just want to connect with them, and people appreciate that because they can sense the authenticity, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really beautiful bit of advice. That coupled with, there's something about like when you're building something big, and some of the people I'm interviewing upcoming, I haven't interviewed them yet, have built these really large international nonprofit movements that have just served just tons and tons and tons of people. And when I hear folks like that talk about how they build things, so much of it occurs on a small level, like a level of relationships. Like they connected with a lot of people intimately in a kind of small setting, or they connected with somebody that that was inspiring to them, or they went. I know one woman that drove around and did something like 50 different little author readings for groups up to like 4 people, and she's built something really big through that. There's something about doing those small, or creating those small inspired relationships that really I think is a vital part of building something. It's kind of remarkable that I hear that again and again and again.
Yeah. Well, when I look back at all of the different relationships that have helped to get me to where I am, every single one of the relationships that have ended up really serving me and my vision and my business have started out with me offering to help that person. None of them really started out with me asking something of them. It all started with me saying, hey, I really love what you're doing. I wrote this for you. Or I would love to help you out in any way that I can. I'd love to help you coordinate this event in Los Angeles. Or, I watched your videos and I really love this and I'd love to contribute this to you. And it just creates a safe space where people don't feel like you're asking anything from them. So they feel safe to connect with you, and they feel already appreciated and acknowledged and seen for who they are. So then they're interested in you. And again, I don't do it because I'm like, ooh, I hope that if I offer to help this person, they're going to end up promoting my stuff. I just do it because I want to actually support them. And then, I think any good energy that you ever invest in relationships will always come back to you. And you might not see it at the time, but it will. It like accumulates in some secret, like storage house somewhere, and then eventually it finds its way back to you in really good ways.
That's awesome. So what kind of advice would you give folks? Maybe it's just this stuff that we were just talking about, but people looking to build platforms and looking to reach larger audiences with their message and their books and their writing. What kind of advice would you give people?
Give it away a million times. Give it away, give it away, give it away, give it away. Like, create as much content as you can that actually authentically serves people. It depends on what you're doing, obviously. But any way that you can give people the experience of what you do and serve them before asking anything of them, that's how you build trust. That's how you build true followers that really believe in what you're doing. There's like these 10 levels of intimacy, and a lot of people try to jump to level 10 right away and ask, it's kind of like,
right. Level 10 is like, let's get into a paid relationship together.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's level 1? I want to hear about these. This is fascinating. Or did you kind of just make this up, or is this like a thing, a studied, quantified thing?
It's a thing. I don't know too much about it. I just kind of know the analogy of if, it's like dating someone. If you go out on a first date with someone and you expect to take them home with you, there's probably going to be a breach of trust there, right? But if you continue investing in that relationship over time, then you can actually grow it, grow the relationship, grow the trust, grow the love. It's the same thing with you building an audience. You can't ask people to go home with you on the first date. You got to give them enough content so that they can really experience who you are and what you give away. And then eventually they'll feel this sense of wanting to give back what you've given them. And I think a lot of people, when they're building a platform, have a fear of giving too much away. Like, well, if I'm putting all my content out there, then it's free for everybody. And then what are they going to want to work with me for? And that's not the case. You don't ever fear giving too much away. Give it all away, and people will still want to work with you. The more you give away, the more they will want to work with you, is what I found.
Yeah, I've heard it put, share like beyond what you feel comfortable sharing, and like use that as a mark. Like if you're like, this is my great secret, I can't share it, then go share that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Tell us a little bit about the different platforms, where people could find you. Which platforms do you like working on most?
Ooh, well, I'm really loving Instagram nowadays because there's the Insta stories, and I do this thing I call Insta coaching, where this is some of my most inspired content, because I'll get off a coaching call and I'll be really excited about this like bit of coaching I gave, and I could be in my pajamas, but I don't care. I just pull out my Instagram and I film myself doing this coaching, and it really makes a difference for people, because it's kind of, fresh out of the oven, so to speak. Is that a phrase? Oh, whatever.
It is. Fresh out, I think so, yeah. If not, it's yours now.
Okay, awesome. So I really love Instagram. And then YouTube, I do this thing called 3 with B. So it's 3-minute off the cuff coaching where I time myself and I have 3 minutes to coach you on a topic. Whether it's like letting go of resentment, or how to forgive your parents, or how to forgive somebody for cheating, or how to, very specific topics. And then Elephant Journal, I have, 100 articles on there. And my mailing list, which you can sign up for on my website.
Yeah, give us the website, give us the Instagram handle, what's your YouTube channel, give us all those details.
Great. My website is www.brandilyntebo.com, BrandilynTebo. Brandilyn Tebo, Teb as in boy, o.com. My email is brandilyn.tebo@gmail.com. My Instagram is Brandilyn_Tebo. My Facebook page is Brandilyn Tebo. So it's all pretty much the same thing, just keyed into different formats.
Gotcha. And where would you point people to first to get a sense of your work? And by the way, the book is coming out as well by the end of the year. So people definitely want to I'd recommend people getting on your email list, because I imagine they'll find out about it there, but they'll also find out about it, I think, on any other format.
Yeah. So I'd say my website then, BrandilynTebo.com. You scroll to the bottom, you can sign up for my email list, my newsletter. You'll get all the info there. And you can also check out, I host retreats about once a month. I do workshops, and my one-on-one coaching tab is on there as well.
So tell us, I wanted to get to the retreats. Like, you've talked about so many awesome, you've just talked about such really great, rich stuff. And I know that you do a lot of coaching with people in these intensives during your retreats. Yeah. So folks are looking to I want to get back to your bio here and read that kind of last line. So if people are looking you say that you coach people on how to remove internal barriers to follow their hearts and be the fullest expression of themselves. I mean, there are definitely aspiring authors that could use that. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your retreats and how people can find those.
Yes. Wow. And aspiring authors would be absolutely the perfect candidates to come through these retreats. The retreats are all about getting you out of your head and into your heart, and teaching you how to actually live from that place. I believe that we all start out in life as fully self-expressed bundles of joy and limitless potential. And then we go through life and we start making all these decisions about what's possible. We decide who we are and what we're good at and what we're not good at, and who likes us and who doesn't like us, and where we belong and where we don't belong, and what we're capable of and what we're not capable of. And we make all those same decisions about all the people around us. And we end up just killing off so much of the potential and possibility for our lives, and sentencing ourselves to living inside of this box of our identity of who we think we are, and relating to other people like they're these two-dimensional things who are a certain way. And it takes a lot of undoing to get us back to that space of being fully self-expressed, limitless potential. And that's what happens in these retreats. We peel away the layers. We undo the tangled knots that have gotten formed over years of life and stress and drama and trauma and everything that we go through. And we return ourselves to this heart-centered place of being inspired and living from joy and love and connection, rather than from the world of right and wrong and stress and shoulds and shouldn'ts. So it's coaching work for the weekend, transformational coaching work. And then we also do yoga every morning. We do breath work in between every session. We eat wonderful healing food, and we learn about how to use food to heal our bodies. We work with some plant medicines like cacao. We do dance workshops in the morning, and it's this wonderful community, very homey, nurturing gathering.
Great. And people could find that on your website.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. It sounds wonderful. I love it. It's such a good mix of active kind of meditation practices, or, yoga and breath work, and then also coaching.
Yeah.
So fantastic. It's been so good to have you on here. I like to end these calls with one little bit of advice, one final piece for, aspiring authors or established authors looking to really reach the world. And, the advice you give now might be something we already covered in the call. You just want to re-presence people to, or it might be something that you're present to in this moment. But yeah, how would you like to leave people, or where would you like to leave people on the call?
Yeah. Follow the discomfort. I'd say whatever feels like it is just a little bit too uncomfortable for you to commit to or take on, whatever whatever that leap is for you, whatever that expansion is for you that feels just a little bit too uncomfortable, do that thing and be generous with yourself and be compassionate with yourself, and know that no internal discomfort can ever actually hurt you. It's an imagined fear that, you know, rejection or embarrassment can actually hurt us. So follow that and lovingly witness yourself through that process, because that's where your biggest growth and expansion is. So follow the fear, follow the discomfort, and do the thing that seems just a little bit outside of your realm of comfort.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, so many teachers talk about that. I think in almost every call that comes up, you know, the idea that fear is that anxiety, or that resistance, as Stephen Pressfield calls it, is actually like a mask for desire. It's a mask for something we really want. It's the edge where our growth really happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Fantastic. Such a great place to end. Thank you so much for your time and your insights, and just being who you are and being so authentic and present and so self-revealing. And thank you for being a stand for all these people's transformation in their lives.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Pleasure.
Great. Okay, thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon. Bye.
If you want more interviews like this, check us out at tonicbooks.online. In addition to other resources, we've made dozens of interviews like this to support aspiring and established authors who want to write, publish, and market their book with ease and impact. For more details, check out the description below.